So since about 1970 or 1980, deaf people have been trying to show that deaf people have a culture. We're not going to discuss that idea right now. Many of you have already heard that discussion. It's still important to examine what culture means to help us understand how deaf people have culture. Traditionally, definitions of culture include ideas of language, art, religion, music, stories, things like that. One example of that is Tyler's 1871 definition. That is the classical definition. Many anthropologists apply the idea to different beliefs, artifacts, behaviors, values, things like that. It's interesting that a lot of people have their ideas on what culture is. For example, British people and American people have similar ideas. Now, British culture is very strongly class-based society, where the upper class run things. Their culture studies social anthropology. Their view of culture is that culture is set up in a social structure. It means that society controls what's involved in culture. One example is Fortes in 1953, who said, which means that social structure does not follow from cultures. It's not part of culture. Everyone's culture is a special theory or way of thinking of things. It manages or governs and becomes the structure of their society. Now, in America, we do not believe in the class or system like that. We're more individual. Now, a major branch of anthropologists are called cultural anthropology. Now, we have the American way of looking at things. We say that culture does not consists of the things that people learn and that we give to other people. It's the way that social groups are organized and work together. It becomes a model of how we believe and how we value things. In 1963, Kroeber and Cluckhorn, two anthropologists, said that culture is the patterns which both are explicit and implicit. So those patterns become part of our culture. Those behaviors people learn and are given through symbols, things like clothes, food, religion, and so on. Those symbols become part of the achievement or the recognition of human groups. That's what's all encapsulating in culture. It's all these other things that people make. You know, the TTY, and I love you sculpture, paintings, things like that. Those are artifacts. Another view of culture is that cultures change. They're adaptive systems. Because people are like animals. Other animals like monkeys and dogs, elephants, giraffes, all sorts of animals. We all have a certain environment. So the animals need to adapt to fit in their surroundings. If they don't adapt, they can't live there. So culture follows one's surroundings. For example, Eskimos live where it's cold. There's no farming, there's no wood for the houses. So what do? They hunt animals that live in the water, like seals, whales, walrus, animals like that. And they build houses from ice and snow and make igloos. They dress in thick fur to keep warm. That's how they changed. In Hawaii, it wouldn't make sense for them to wear all these thick clothes. They dress light, or, don't have shirts on. There are lots of plants available, so they eat a lot of fruit and things like that. They're close to the water, so they get a lot of fish. Culture can also be seen as a belief system. In 1957, a man named Goodenough said, that means that culture involves everything that people need to know so that they can operate in a way that is accepted by all. If someone deviates from that way of believing or knowledge, either the person has to leave the group or change and follow the group's way. Goodenough said that culture is not important, nor the people, their behaviors or emotions. What's really important is how those things believe, behaviors, things like that are put together. How people see things and view things. If people think those things are important, then it's part of their culture. If people think that thing is not important, then it won't be part of their culture. Related to the idea, people must show, skill and performance within the culture, which means that people need to show that they can follow the culture's ideas and ways. They can speak the language, believe in the things that the culture believes are important. If they don't believe, they will not show the right skills or the right performance. But people can still be individuals. Some people have strong competence in certain things. Other people do not have those skills for performance in certain things. But how are those differences figured out? Kesey said, culture includes skill and behavior. But that's not everything. It's important how people view things and see their culture. It's how they see the world, how they interpret the world, how they think about these things, how other people see them, how other people view them and think about them, how they fit into my perception of the world. So it's not a negotiating process. The other theory I think is really important to deaf culture is the idea that culture is a relationship, a form of power. Some people, like Keasley, think that there's a level playing field, that we all have equal opportunity. But other researchers say that it isn't as equal. There are inequalities. Some people have more power and control others that don't have as much power. For example, Gramsci, Italian theorist, came up with the word hegemony, which means to be controlled by a higher class, a ruling class, with more power. And of course, the people don't want to let go of the power. They want to control things. That can influence culture as well. Cultures within a hegemonic system can be manipulated by those forces. Some cultures will accept the idea of people in power and follow them. Those cultures will learn from those ideas and add them into their cultural systems. Many cultures consist of a majority culture and a minority culture. The cultures that are controlled by a majority but they might not think what's in the best. The people in the majority may not think of what's best for the people in the minority. The majority wants the money, the power, the control. They don't think of the rights and how to help the people in the minority. You remember in France when Marie Antoinette said if they're hungry, let them eat cake. She wanted power and control. She was happy, so what they did didn't matter to her. She wasn't thinking about what was best for her people. So Gramsci said, the majority cultures, even though many people believe it, believe that everything is fine. If you look inside, things are ruined. An example is an American Indian man named Churchill. He said, isn't that interesting? He's basically saying that white people came to America and took over from the Indians. But what the white people didn't realize is their culture had to be set up first. Why, you may ask? A long time ago, white cultures used to be the same as the Native Americans. They lived and respected the land. Do you remember the Druids? The English that worshipped the moon, the sun, the ground, things like that for their religion. Then the Christians came and took over England and changed their culture. So in reality, Christians colonized the British Druids. Now, all over Europe, they've forgotten about their past. They forgot about their shamanic roots of their culture. When they forget about the past, something needs to take its place. So instead of feeling upset about the loss from their culture before, they disconnect from the Druid culture and become part of the Christian culture. So today, they don't think about, those past things that they would believe in. But they couldn't go back to the Druids, and they wouldn't know how to disassociate with the Christians. I think this is really interesting, and it's definitely something for us to talk about, and how those ideas might apply to the deaf culture.